Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome back to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, where we inspire you, we motivate you, and we educate you. And today we're going to do some just heart-to-heart conversation with my great guest and friend. And I'll tell you, life is real, life happens. And so many times we don't understand the path that we go down. But this gentleman, I'll tell you what, I was blessed to be a guest on his podcast, and we just bonded, and I wanted to showcase his story here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. So I definitely want you to get out your pen and paper a little bit earlier today. And because anything that you write down, remember, you retain a lot more of it because it registers to your subconscious mind. So get that pen and paper out, and let's welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, Mr. Jeff Johnston. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Daniel. It's quite an honor to be on your show finally. I've been following your story on LinkedIn for quite a while, and somehow our conversations connected, and you were gracious enough to come on my podcast, which was one of the higher watched podcasts. And I've only been doing them since January, so I'm not a seasoned, grizzled veteran like you are. But we had a really good.
I might be grilled, but I don't think I'm seasoned yet.
It's work in progress, isn't it? No, so I really appreciate this opportunity, and I kind of feel. And that's the key word I like to use in my life is opportunity. You know, everything is, even the worst of times are in and of themselves opportunities for us to learn, to become a better man, a better dad, a better son, a better neighbor, you know, a better guest on your show, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, I'll tell you what, Jeff, I know the amazing person you are. We've had some heart-to-heart conversations, but do me a favor. Take a minute and introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. If you can do that for me, that way they know who you are, kind of your what you do and everything else, if you don't mind, for me, my friend. I know you're a rock and roller there with Iron Maiden in the back in the day. That's what you wanted my soul, because there was a 13-year-old Daniel Gomez there with Eddie the Trooper.
I mean, I don't care what you are, who doesn't like Iron Maiden? I mean, they're just the staple of heavy metal. Especially, I'm 55, so that just brings back all my memories in high school. And you know, I'll have to laugh because Eddie there running with the flag, you know, through the battlefield, you know, people ask me, you know, why did I pick that out of all the flags I could have had behind me? And in a way, that's a metaphor for my ADD that I have inside of me, is that every day is this raging battle where I run across the battlefield trying to solve my problems and fight through things. And so to me, it is representing something, and it's this inside battle that I have every day, just as somebody who is blessed to have ADD, which is a superpower in my opinion. And unfortunately, kids get diagnosed with ADD and they look at it as a problem. But let me go back to who I am and kind of what this is all about. My name is Jeff Johnston. I'm from the heartland of America, from one of the flyover states. I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So we are 2 miles east of Des Moines, 4 miles west of Chicago, 4 miles south of Minneapolis, and 4 miles north of St. Louis. So you just bring all those 4 cities and draw right in the middle, and there's Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Beautiful. I was very fortunate to grow up in a very middle-class family. My dad was a doctor. My mom graduated magna cum laude in her class in college, but she decided to stay home and raise 4 boys. So put my dad through med school. You know, I had three brothers that are still here as long as my parents are as well. They're both 88. But I had a really simple upbringing, Daniel. Not a lot of tragedy, not a lot of trauma. Pretty much what we asked for Christmas, we got. You know, pretty much in a bubble, protected from the realities of what's really out there. And again, I was fortunate to kind of win the birth lottery on that perspective, because I had nothing to do with, you know, my childhood. There's just kind of, some people are really unlucky and some people get lucky. Well, I was just very fortunate. Well, all of a sudden in my 20s and 30s, I went into the investment business, and I built up this company called Premier Investments of Iowa when I was 23. I've never had a boss really. I've always worked for myself. I wanted to, with ADD, I thought I could be more productive and creative if I just monitored myself and wasn't in a world where someone told me what to do. I just never felt I could thrive in that world. So I built this really good, thriving financial services practice. I have 9 financial advisors with us now. We have 7 full-time staff. We cater to pretty low maintenance, Midwest investors, mom and pop people who just want to basically make a fair rate of return and have a simple life. And at 50 years old, I was on top of the world. I really couldn't have life any better. I married my wife, Prudence. This year would have been our 21st wedding anniversary.
Question, Jeff, do you think with all the success that you had kind of just going up, not knowingly, you took some things for granted?
Oh, absolutely. And humility and some things I'll talk a little bit about, some of the practices now that I've been kind of redrawn to that I learned in college, but I kind of just neglected. But yeah, building up this life, big house, car, just I have 3 boys at the time. I met my wife, Prudence. She had
So let me ask you this, because I really want to add some value to as we continue on your story, because we're definitely going to go in depth. But what do you think somebody listening to this right now is maybe hearing this and they have the cherries on top, they have the whipped cream. You've been very successful. You have your own, financial estate, to say, with corporation that you do with your 9 financial planners. What's some advice that you would give, 2 tidbits of wisdom that you would share with somebody listening to this? Maybe you got complacent. Maybe you're too comfortable with your wife, or you take your kids for granted. Maybe your job. Maybe I spoke to a gentleman yesterday that was making $250,000 a year and lost his job because of something that he believed in, and he from one day to the next, and he was freaking out. What would you say to that person right now? What are 2 words of wisdom that you would share with somebody that's in that just kind of too comfortable right now and taking things for granted?
Well, having the benefit of hindsight, which is a really nice luxury, I'd say prevention and preparedness. And what I mean by that is practice the things each day to prevent putting yourself in situations where really bad things can happen. Such as we're going to get into, drugs, alcohol, lying, stealing, cheating, exercising, eating healthy, reading, writing, being less toxic people in your life. So do preventive maintenance before things happen. And then preparedness as well. I'm into meditation. I write, I read, I exercise. So when life throws a curveball like it did October 4th, 2016, and again, June 29th, 2021, I'm in a better position to handle these things, as opposed to trying to relearn or come up with new ways to coping mechanisms, I call them. So again, what happened to me, Daniel, is on October 4th, 2016, at the age of 50, 3 boys, happily married, everything's going good. I get a phone call that our oldest son, Seth, 23 at the time, was found dead in a hotel room, overdose with heroin laced with fentanyl. And that was the beginning of an awakening for me.
Did that catch you by surprise when you got that phone call? Because sometimes
No,
the signs are there.
Yeah, they were there.
See it, and we kind of ignore them, right? We brush them under the rug. I did a video on that the other day, and the signs have been there. And I think I love your story, because many people don't know that I tried to commit suicide when I was 18 years old.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And it was just one of those things that I've never talked about. My son was already 19 years old, and he didn't even know my story that when I tried to commit suicide. So what were continue on. I just want to I want to get people. I want to wake people up, because what we're going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen, is really, Jeff lost his son, committed suicide, but I really want to bring awareness to the topic. Jeff has a movement, and we're going to support him and definitely raise awareness to things and just learn some life lessons from this, because I think life, business, and faith are all tied together, and it's how you respond to the adversities that come in, and what can you learn, and how can you grow from these situations that come into our life. So you weren't surprised. So tell us about that, Jeff.
Yeah. So when Seth was 15, he was diagnosed with ADD, which I have as well. I've never been medicated. My dad was a doctor. He never medicated me. He just told me, it's a great asset you have in your life, Jeff. Take advantage of it. I felt bad for the other kids that weren't hyper and intense and looked out the window all day during school, So Seth was diagnosed with ADD. I think right at that moment, when he was given Adderall, he thought that ADD was a curse. that he would become a werewolf at midnight, you know, and that there was a problem, that the reason why doctors are giving me pills is because I'm screwed up. And at the same time, he started experimenting with alcohol and marijuana, just, you know, normal stuff that probably majority of kids in the world experiment at certain points of their lives. At that point, it was okay. It was manageable. But then, you know, school started suffering, a few arrests, a drunk driving, you know, some other things started ratcheting up. And then experimenting with cocaine. And then he had an incident where he stabbed somebody and actually went to prison. And I thought prison would be his aha moment, Daniel. You know, I thought prison would be the rock bottom that we hear so much about. And 60 days after he got out of prison, he was dead. So in a way, I kind of wish he still remained in prison. My lawyer was a really good lawyer and he got him out early. And this is the book I wrote about our journey. This one's for you, an inspirational journey through addiction, death, and meaning. And what I wanted to do is a couple things. Seth has a child. When he died, he didn't know his girlfriend was pregnant. So I have a beautiful 5-year-old granddaughter named Brighton. And she is, as I always tell Brighton, hey, Brighton, you brighten my day. You know, she's just a gift. She's a gift, you know, and Seth had never had a chance to meet her. And I often wonder if the child would have been born, maybe he wouldn't have tried heroin. I don't know. I always kind of wonder that, if that would have given him the strength not to try it. But one thing I've learned in this whole grief journey, Daniel, is not to play the what if game too much.
So let me ask you this, but I want to ask, because what did you learn that you would have done differently? Because I think somebody listening to this right now, they have a child that maybe they're diagnosed with ADD. And the sad part about it is that I hear you too, and I'm going to be honest with you, right? It breaks my heart that you say that we label ourselves with these labels that doctors give us, that the world, that the culture gives us. And it's, I think it's a bunch of BS, to be honest.
I do too.
Man.
I do too.
So, and I say that because it's culture, right? Culture wants to label you as overweight or as ADD. And the truth is, if you really study personalities, for those of you listening here on iTunes and Spotify, and just on the podcast audio part of it, is that there's four major personalities. You got your left side, which is analytical. You got your right side, which is really the more expressive, which is that's the expressive personality that they want to give, right? I'm expressive. And they can say, well, you don't sit still. Well, that's my personality. That's why if your personality is expressive and you're that outgoing personality, you can't sit at a cubicle all day. I had a job one time. I hated it. So I need you to hear it out there, ladies and gentlemen, that if you have a child that can't sit still, learn what their personality is. Are they an expressive personality? Are they that people that say there's a social butterfly, there's a life of the party? Because you can't give that person medicine, that kid drugs, and expect him he's going to turn into a zombie. My nephew, one of my nephews was diagnosed when he was a little kid. He was like in 5th grade, and my sister was like, she would go home and like, what's wrong with you? He's like, well, nothing. I took the medicine you told me to. And he went from being this smiling, beautiful young little boy to numb. So what would you have done differently looking back, right? And or what's the advice that you would give to somebody right now that may be going through the same scenario or kind of same situation that you went through that can help them? Jeff, give us two words of wisdom that you can kind of add value to us on that, if you don't mind.
I don't have a lot of regret. I write about this in the book because, you know, I tried.
Not regret. I said, what would you have done differently is what I said.
Well,
I didn't say regrets. I said,
no. I guess maybe I interpreted it correctly. I said it wrong. I guess what I would have done differently, I would have done more research into Adderall. To be real specific, you go to the internet and Google Adderall, it has the same addictive prescription qualities as methamphetamines. It's watered down meth. And if I would have seen the word methamphetamine in the same description as Adderall, I never would have allowed that to happen. It's my child, not the doctor's. The buck stops with me. That I learned from. The second thing is there were things I probably didn't listen to very well. Being married, trying to balance a marriage, run a business, and I have other 2 boys, you know, my parents, and we all have distractions. You know, I couldn't give Seth the undivided attention that I'm not going to say he deserved, but I wasn't aware of it. And through meditation, now I've really learned to be much more aware of my surroundings. So those are the things I would suggest for people. If I had to do over, I would have researched any prescription drugs given to my child's and I would have been much better listener and less talking.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because myself right now, my son, we're here and he was diagnosed with COVID this past week. It's broken my heart just
Is
to
he
see
okay?
him. He's doing good. He's coming out of it. He woke up achy today. He was good yesterday and the day before, but today he's kind of, I don't know what the correct word is, but he's kind of relapsed and he's not feeling as good. But I say that because it's like taking care of him is just like, wow, like there are children. And I think what you just said, Jeff, is sometimes we're so busy living life as a dad, especially as a father. I think for myself, I'm speaking to the dads out there, is that we forget the importance of really connecting with our sons, with our daughters. And I'm not saying just, hey, clean your room, or hey, take out the trash. That's not
Right.
communicating. Is
Right.
how you doing? And
Right.
I can tell you, just the other day, I woke up 2 days ago and got out of my prayer time and I was gonna go do something else. And I just felt like, you know what, I need to go check on my son. I felt like God put that on my heart. And I go out there into the room and I'm just like, I start crying because I remember my dad taking care of me when I had the flu because my mom passed away when I was 10. And I was just like, I don't know what impact that's going to have on my son, but I can
Right.
tell you that just the fact that I went in there to go take him water, take him medicine as a man, I think they need to see that type of behavior modeled to them as young kids, as young adults, because right now we need more leadership in our homes. We need more men to rise up and be men. Do you agree with me?
100, 1000%. And I'm happy you told that story about your son, because the day that Seth died, I came home. My wife was getting ready to go to a golf tournament, and I had to tell her what happened. And we went up to the hotel room to check it out because the sheriff was up there. They'd already taken his body to the morgue or the hospital, I guess. And all in my head, I was thinking, how am I going to talk to my other two boys? Ian's going to get off the golf course from playing a high school tournament, and my other son's going to come off from 7th grade and get off the bus, and their lives will never be the same. So I thought to myself, I got this one moment. I got this fragile opportunity here that I could really screw up. I'm never going to get a second chance to take advantage of what happened. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's the only way to look at these things. And so when I sat the boys down when they got home, I said, boys, I got some really bad news. Your brother died. And then I shut my mouth and I just let it be quiet. And Ian goes, how'd he die, Dad? Drugs? And I said, yeah. And then Daniel, something happened and it just popped into my head. I didn't rehearse it, but this is what I told the boys. And it's a chapter in my book called The Two Roads. I said, boys, we have two roads in front of us. We have one road of anger, despair, and hatred. We'll become alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of motivation and inspiration. This could be the single greatest moment to inspire us to do great things for us and ourselves for the rest of our lives. I'm on the second road. I'm asking you to join me. Now, there's a key pivot point there. I didn't tell them how to grieve. I was going to show them how to grieve. So from that moment in time, I became a better man, not a bitter man. I like to tell people. I realized that I have even though the metaphor of two roads was out there, there is not two roads. There's one road. You can't go down the abyss road. That's a horrible road. It's a pit. It's nowhere I want to spend my life. So for me, I presented it as two roads, but there isn't two roads. There's one road. And so with that, I formed a nonprofit called the Choices Network. I wrote the book. I have a podcast now. I have a blog. I'm meeting people that have been through worse than I have been through. I met a dad that lost his only two boys to overdose. I have two of my three still here. From that regards, I'm lucky. I'm grateful,
Yeah, well, I love what you said, ladies and gentlemen. You got to write that down. Are you going to become better or bitter? And Jeff chose to become better. He had two roads, right? To the left was bitterness. And the one thing is, and I was just talking about this in another podcast, is bitterness is like when you hold on to bitterness, when you're bitter inside of you, it's like drinking poison every day, or expecting the person in front of you to drink poison, and it's like it's gonna poison them. But no, in reality, bitterness poisons you. So what are you holding on? What anger, what bitterness are you holding on to? I get it. I lost my mom when I was 10 years old. I lost my dad when I was 26. And one of my brothers died. I lost two brothers to suicide, and it's just, it sucks. But I'll say this is that Be a Jeff, ladies and gentlemen. Be a Jeff. Look at what he did. He went and asked his boys to join him. He didn't tell them. As a
Right.
leader as a father, he says, "Which road will you choose? I'm gonna choose this one to grow." He started a podcast, started a nonprofit. He's helping people out there in the world now. But many of us, I get it, right? I get it. It's you're angry, you don't understand why, and sometimes it's not for us to understand why. But getting bitter and angry is going to lead to more despair, like Jeff just said. And he didn't command his boys to follow him. He said, "Will you follow me?" And let me ask you this: did they follow you?
They did. It was absolutely amazing what they both done. And I told them as well, I said, not everybody's a natural leader. Not everybody is a leader, but at some point in your life, you're going to be asked to lead. And you guys right now are leading the people behind you, your peer group, your friends, the spouses you're going to have, the children you're going to have. You need to lead. Well, Ian, as a junior in high school, raised over $50,000 through golf, through putting for every birdie he made. We set up a GoFundMe account. The National American Junior Golf Association got involved. He raised $50,000 to give back to the Alcohol and Substance Abuse Council here, the Area Substance Abuse Council, ASAC is the acronym, where our son Seth was a patient for a while. And it got so big nationally that CBS Sports came out here for 4 days and did a story on Ian, and it's on the internet. It's 9 minutes long. And if you just Google Ian Johnston, IAN Johnston, and then put in CBS Sports, and it's narrated by PGA golfer Zach Johnson, who won the Masters and won the British Open a few years ago. And he's from Cedar Rapids here. But with that groundswell of support, things just kept going and kept going. And I'll tell you about a project we have coming up next summer that I'm going to ask all your followers and yourself and all your listeners to at some point support us on this cause, because the numbers are getting worse, Daniel, across the board. Suicide, overdose, alcoholism, depression, anxiety. None of the numbers are going backwards. They're all increasing. When Seth died, Daniel, there was 56,000 overdoses in the United States. Last year, there was 96,000 overdoses. That's almost 100% increase. 100% increase in 5 years.
No,
there's a lot of Jeff Johnstons out there.
Let me ask you this. So I love what you're sharing with us. So at that point, you tell your boys they choose to follow you, and your son that's a golfer raises $50,000. What were two approaches that you took on as a father? Because I think there's some fathers listening to this and parents in general. What are two ways that you think you approach your boys different after your son took his own life, to help your other two sons that were still alive to be a better role model, better father, better leader? What are two things that you did differently that you were definitely aware of, and how that we can take away from this episode today?
Yeah. And one thing I do want to clarify, and I understand why you said that, because you had a couple of people in your family who commit suicide. But yeah, Seth overdosed on heroin laced with fentanyl. He didn't commit suicide, but in a way, his addiction was a slow suicide, Daniel. So I kind of look at the 8-year addiction train he was on was suicide by, dripping, each beer he drank was going to eventually end in his death. But anyway, two things that I learned differently to approach my boys. Well, one was to have this unbelievable open mind into whatever they come to me about their problems. And I'll give you one really good example. And again, I don't know how this will go with your audience and how people will take this, but it is life. And sometimes talking about things that are uncomfortable, need to talk about it. But my youngest son, Roman, when he was 16, came to me and told me he was gay. And, as a heterosexual dad, I don't live in that world. I can't relate to it. I have gay friends. I personally have no problem with that. I know some people do, and so be it. That's their prerogative. But I thought, what another opportunity I have to screw this up. The first thing I can do to screw this up is to start trying to talk him out of it. Like it's a curse, like ADD, like you're going to outgrow this. It's a phase. I didn't. I just listened to him. And I said, Roman, I love you. I absolutely love you. I'm 100% in support of you being you. not what I want you to be, not what anybody else wants you to be. It's your life. You have an opportunity to do what you want to do. Now, for me, I had to start learning about this stuff. So I actually had him on my podcast. It was a whole hour-long podcast called An Act of Love. And we talked about the difficult challenges that kids have coming to tough topics like sexuality, sex abuse. 1 in 4 women are sexually abused. 1 in 6 boys are sexually abused. How difficult is it for your children to go talk to you about the babysitter touching him in inappropriate places, or cousin Eddie, molested him for 4 years? It's very difficult. I'm meeting people like this every day on my podcasts. So, well, that's one thing I learned, is to be very open-minded on literally any topic that they come to me about. And really what got me really into this was a friend of mine had a friend that their 28-year-old son hung himself. And the reason in the suicide note was he was ashamed of his homosexuality because of the family pressures that couldn't happen in our family. So he had a child, got married, and then hung himself because he just couldn't handle it. And I thought to myself, this has to stop. Why are people killing themselves over something like that? Why can't we talk about these topics? So I throw that out there as something that was a really good opportunity for me to become a better human, of learning compassion and understanding that not everybody is going to think the same way I think. And so, again, I don't know how that falls on people's ears. Sometimes people, I'll leave it at that. How's that?
Yeah. And what's the second thing?
The second thing was in regards to supporting whatever endeavor that they want to partake. Now, each of my boys grieve completely differently. Ian will go a month and everything's fine, and then boom, he hits the wall on the golf course. We withdrew a tournament 2 weeks ago, and he shot a good first round, and the next day we were going to stay in a hotel and play again. I said, dude, let's withdraw. Golf's not that important to me. He's a Division I golfer. I mean, golf is important. And we withdrew, and we went home. He took a break, put his clubs away, and his season starts tomorrow, his first day of practice. And I just didn't feel like grinding him into the ground and forcing the kids to grieve the same way I grieve. They're not going to grieve the same way. And then what happened 7 weeks ago, Daniel, to add more complexity to my life, my wife died 7 weeks ago.
Wow.
Married 21 years.
Well, let's go back real quick, because I don't want to miss this opportunity, what you just said.
Yeah.
There's so many, and I almost made this mistake as a father. My son growing up, he was playing football because, of course, I grew up with Herschel Walker, number 34.
Yeah.
And my son was a good running back. And then he's like, but Dad, I think I want to play band. I want to be in band. And I'm like, dude, you don't want to be in band. Because I thought about me. I thought about Daniel.
Absolutely.
Daniel was a chubby little kid in 6th grade in band. And I felt like the outcast, and everybody made fun of me. And I was like, Jay, you don't want to be in band. And then I kind of we shrugged it off. But then he goes, no, Dad, like, I think I want to really be in band. I was like, dude, whatever. but I say that because I love what you said. There's so many parents out there that want their children, right? They want to live, the parent wants to live their life through their son, through their daughter, whether you're a mother or a father. Yeah. You're at this moment, you're trying to force what your kid doesn't love. If you remember what I said earlier in this episode, ladies and gentlemen, your child has their own personality. And maybe you're that introvert as a mom or a dad, and your son or daughter is that extrovert, or vice versa. You're that extrovert, and your mom and your son and daughter, they don't want to do anything with big crowds, because that's not their personality, and we force this upon them. And we have so many doctors and lawyers, or just people that are in the wrong profession, because they're pushed by their mom and dad to do this. And absolutely, I say this because when my son says, I said, well, Jay, I'll tell you what. Okay, go ahead. He goes, well, no, Dad, you know what? I think he did it for me. He said, well, I'll do both. So he was a running back and in band. And
oh, good.
And then he did both of them. And I said, well, he goes, well, I can do both of them in high school too, Dad. I said, okay. I didn't say nothing. I said, well, we'll get to that road we'll get to that. We'll cross that road when we get to it. Well, then next thing you know, the road showed up, because 7th grade, 8th grade. And then the day came by where he had to choose between band and football. And by this time, he was really like, Dad, I like band. I was like, great, right? But he was still working out. But I say that because he had to choose that one night, and the coach, I almost went in there and told the coach something, but he goes, don't worry about it, Dad, I got it.
Cool.
He goes, you know what? He goes, you know the right thing to do. He told me, like, the coach was telling my son this. He goes, I'll see you in the morning, man. And you don't want to be doing a wussy, something like that. He was talking down about band.
Wow.
So my son just didn't go. He made a decision,
Right. A choice.
and he chose to stick with band. Now he's gonna be a senior. This is right. Fast forward 8 years later, he's gonna be a senior here this semester at Texas State University.
Oh,
Got
cool.
got a got a scholarship there. But I say this because even though that's not the path I wanted for him, and he told me this, right? And not that he threw it in my face, but he reminded me, Dad, you're the one that says follow your dreams. You're the one that teaches people to follow your heart. I'm following my
Yeah.
heart. Because
Right.
then the
Yeah.
next big test came in for me, Jeff, was that I wanted him to stay here in San Antonio because he got a full blown scholarship to UTSA, but he goes, I want to go to Texas State, Dad. And I said, well, I got to practice what I preach, right? I coach people on this stuff. But I say that because now that he's there, he's very independent. But I think
Right.
the most important thing is I kind of saw how God has used him to help the less fortunate, right? Because there is let's be honest, right? There is some kind of geeky people, and not in a bad way, but they just can't. They don't have the
Yeah.
voice or the confidence to
Right.
defend themselves. And it's like my
Right.
son, he's in powerlifting too, so he's kind of that gladiator to say, hey, just leave them
Yeah.
alone. You don't got to. They're not bugging you, so why are you bugging them? And
Right.
it's a beautiful thing when you see your son kind of be that leader and develop into that. And I'm talking about this, Jeff, because I love what you said, right? You said you have to allow sometimes your kids to just grow
Mhm.
and not live your life through your children. And I think so many parents make the mistake of trying to do that to their kids. And if you're doing that in life with your children, well, guess what? If you're in business, you're probably doing the same to the employees that you oversee
Yeah.
or your business. You're trying to
Yeah.
push your agenda, and it's not their personality to do that.
Daniel, I'm happy you brought this up because I think, again, as a parent to three boys, we were heavy in sports. My son Seth played basketball, and so we were all sports. And I think we try to live through our kids, obviously, vicariously through our kids. At the same time, we want our kids to grow up to be mini me, just like me. And I tell my boys all the time, dude, you don't want to be like me. You want to be better than me. You want to blow me out of the water. You want to make what I'm doing right now look minor compared to the great heroic things you can do. So I'm challenging my boys not to be like me. I don't want you to be like me. I'd be great, but it'd be extremely arrogant and narcissistic and selfish for me to say, I want you to be like me. I'm that great. I'm not. I'm just a dad in Iowa, dude. I'm not that great. I'm not that special, but I think I can always keep getting better. And that's one thing that as an athlete myself, as an ADD person, I'm never satisfied. I have this compulsion that I'm going to die tomorrow, or this obsession, I'm going to die tomorrow. And I'm going to go, damn, I had so many things I wanted to get done. I just didn't live long enough. Do you feel that way sometimes, Daniel? You have so many things you want to do, but you just don't have the time to do it,
Yeah, I think I was going through that here. Like I said, we were taking care of my son, and then actually my wife's going to go get tested here in the next 30 minutes because she's not feeling good either. But I think you just learn to prioritize what's priority, and give yourself, I think as men, and I'm not, I think not that we don't want to exclude the women in this episode,
Yeah.
but I think this episode is I want to speak to the fathers right now, is because so many times as men, we're too hard on ourselves. You got to give yourself that space. And even the moms, you got to give yourself, you can't be everything to your children all the time. And I had to decide, well, I got this agenda for work. COVID came in and put a different agenda over us, and you do what you can, and the rest, you just you don't kill yourself over it. That's kind of my perspective on that. And I want to thank you for really just opening your heart, Jeff, because you've been a true, it means a lot to me, to our audience right now listening to this, because I know that you're really touching some hearts out there because you're being real. And I think more parents, mothers, and fathers can learn from you right now, because sometimes you just got to let your kids, I'm not saying give them rule over the home. And
Right.
if they're the ones that are going to decide if you're going to go to church today on Sunday. Now, I'm not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying let your kids, give them a space and a place for their personality to shine through, and let their light shine out. So
it's like you have guardrails set up for the kids, let them bounce around and keep them within the parameters of being a good human and having quality well-being in their life, but allow them some volatility to kind of go down the highway of life and bump into the guardrails. So I think that's our job as parents, is to show them. You asked me a couple of things earlier about, observations and lessons. Well, one thing I did is I quit drinking about 14 months after Seth died. And I was an alcoholic up to that point, a high functioning alcoholic, 6-7 days a week. I could get up early. I could work a lot. So I was a high functioning. My wife was an alcoholic as well. So, you know, we were drinking pretty heavy. Seth died. I quit drinking about a year into it. She didn't. And that's where the other challenge in my life came, is that I realized again that everyone grieves differently. And this is by no way am I trying to throw my wife or anybody under the bus, because I'm not judgmental when it comes to grieving. I took one road, she took a different road. And unfortunately, the combination of grief and all the other things she was dealing with, her life ended on June 29th, 2021. So what I did, and do I have a few minutes to share one story about this last weekend, Daniel?
Yeah, for sure, man.
Okay. I want to talk to your followers about something that happened. So I got this podcast and this project called Living Undeterred, and it's a mindset that I came up with to teach people about, you know, positive living, healthy choices, things like that, primarily geared towards kids mostly. And then, so my son's been gone almost 4.5 years. My wife was gone 7 weeks, and I was here alone in my house. And I've never had any depression in my life. I've had depressive moments, I like to call them, but I've never had depression, you know, length of time where I've been depressed. And I had all these boxes sitting in the corner of stuff that my wife had. I walked by them for 7 weeks, Daniel, 7 weeks, looking at them, thinking, how are these boxes going to get out of here? They're not going to walk up and walk out of here. I'm going to have to move them. And in so doing, I sat down last Friday, 7 o'clock at night, by myself, opened up the first box. And I tell you what, within 30 seconds, I was back into the abyss. You know, Mr. Living Undeterred, Mr. Book Writer, Mr. Podcast Guy, Mr. Positive Living, Mr. No Drinking. I was in 30 seconds, I was right back into the abyss, on my back, staring out. Couldn't go any further because I was on the bottom. And each letter I opened was another letter the boys wrote when Seth was in prison. Another letter Seth wrote to me, Dad, thanks for having my back. Just, I'm crying. And there's 6 more boxes to go. So 1 hour went down. I shut the box, opened the next box. There's my wedding. There's all my pictures of my wife, all the dating pictures, all the parties we had, all the birthday parties. And now I'm in this place, Daniel, where I'm having terrifying thoughts that I've never had in my life. And the thoughts came into my head, and I thought to myself, now, wait a minute. This is 5 years almost since my son died, and I've never thought about suicide. This is 7 weeks after my wife died. Why now? Why did this happen right now? I'm not drunk. I'm not high. I figured out why. And this is very important for your listeners to understand what I'm about to say. It wasn't the content of the boxes that set me off. It was the box on my shoulders that wasn't prepared. And I take that metaphor with me. I made a post on social media, I had thousands of people commenting. And that my purpose of it wasn't just to be vulnerable and tell people, hey, I crumbled, I fell off the wagon. I learned a valuable lesson that I can't open those boxes unprepared. And what I mean by that is I skipped my meditation for a week, and I skipped working out for a week. So 2 things I do every single day. For some reason, Daniel, I got overconfident. You know, an alcoholic walking by the refrigerator saying, I can have 1 beer. Someone trying to lose weight, I can have 1 piece of pizza. I got overconfident. And I didn't think that Jeff Johnston, with the big S on his shirt, these boxes could set me off. Well, they did. And it wasn't the boxes. I'm convinced that I just went into them unprepared. Had I done my meditation, I do 20 minutes every day. I did it before you and I are talking. I run an hour in my elliptical every day. I try to. Sometimes it's 30 minutes, but I don't miss a run.
You know what? I love what you said, though, because we need to hear this right now, what you just said. Jeff allowed himself to cry, ladies and gentlemen. You have to allow yourself to cry. I think so many times, Jeff, in my culture as a Hispanic man, we're taught machismo, we're taught bravo, right? And it's good. You definitely want to be the leader and be that man, but it's okay to cry sometimes. And I love that you just opened up your heart, and because what crying does, Jeff, it brings healing to the soul. It brings healing to your heart and to your soul and letting it out. And I thank you for sharing that with you. And I don't think that you were being confident. I just think that you felt better and you didn't think something was going to trigger you, and you saw something that triggered you, and sometimes we're just too hard on ourselves. So I don't think
tell you what,
I don't think it was that you walked around intentional to be too confident. I think we need to have that confidence. I talk about confidence. I train on confidence.
mhm.
I just think that sometimes we're human, and then we see something, and it just, you can't prepare yourself for that. So
I think what I learned, Daniel, was I identified too much with my thoughts. In other words, through meditation, I learned not to identify with my thoughts. I don't judge them. A thought shows up, I say, okay, you're here, you're going to go away eventually. You know, the idea of impermanence is a valuable concept for people. Good times end, so do bad times. And so the problem was every time a thought popped in, I just added emotional baggage to it. And so it isn't the thought itself, and it's not even controlling your thoughts. It's just being aware that that's all it is. The picture in the box has no emotional feelings. It doesn't know what it is. It's just a picture. I'm the one putting all the emotional baggage on it. So I learned very quickly through taking shortcuts that I can't take shortcuts ever again. I can't. It could be the end of my life next time I take a shortcut. So now I'm back to doing my meditation, being more aware, understanding that I am human. I'm not a Superman. You know, that just because I've had 2 deaths doesn't mean I can't have another. I got to be prepared. My parents are 88. Something could happen right now to somebody I love. So at what point am I going to let all that just kill me and break me? It can't. I am unshakable. I am unstoppable right now. And it's because I've trained my brain to be so resilient and so undeterred, but I allow things to happen. I don't fight upstream. I gave up that whole quest of trying to wake up and think I'm in a fantasy illusion that nothing bad's going to happen today. I don't want bad things to happen, but I tell you what, I am ready for them. I'm prepared.
I want you to do me a favor, because somebody right now, it may be their life, it may be their business. You know, 2020, we still have a big hangover of over 2020, the economy.
Yeah.
And there's many, even this third quarter that we're in right now in 2021, businesses ain't going the way they want to go.
Right.
People are just hopeless still. I want you to speak to that person right now. Look in the camera, open up your heart and take a minute or so and speak to them, because they're about to give up. They're about to give in. And maybe they're even contemplating suicide, or maybe they're, whatever it may be, Jeff. I want you to speak to their heart and soul right now, and do me a favor and encourage them, my friend, if you can do that, please.
I think every single person on the planet has a why. And some, like myself, I found my why on October 4th of 16 and June 29th. My why became very clear to me. For those struggling, you just haven't found it yet. It's within all of us. It's there. You just have to find it. Your why could be your God. It could be your aging parents. It could be your son or daughter that has COVID or has cancer. We all have a compelling reason to do good in our lives, and in doing so, we help others. But remember one thing, Daniel, and this is a key point I think your listeners could benefit from. But when you're in an airplane and then you hit turbulence, the oxygen tank comes down. You don't take that oxygen tank and put it on your child. They tell you to put it on you first. There's a specific reason for that. You are of no benefit to your children if you're dead. So you need to take care of yourself first. And so if you're struggling right now and you have other people around you depending on you, and you're drinking and you're not working out, you're not exercising, you're not reading healthy books. If you're a spiritual person, you're skipping church, you're skipping reading the Bible, whatever you're doing that keeps you going, those are shortcuts. And I can't promise you, I can only speak on my behalf what happened to me. I took shortcuts and it almost cost me my life. And so find your why and you'll find your way. I think that's a clear description how I like to look at life. And for anyone watching this, you haven't found your why. You just haven't looked deep enough. You haven't looked in the right places, but you have a why. There's somebody that you care about on this planet. Somebody. If not, then there's something you care about, whether it's animals or a neighbor, a disabled person that you know. There's somebody out there, something that you could definitely benefit from. And in doing so, you're going to help your life, but you have to help yourself first. You cannot go out and try to save everybody around you, and then you're drinking every night or you're smoking every day, you know? And I think that's the lesson, Daniel, that I've learned is, although I'm doing this to help people, I am doing this to help Jeff Johnston. My mission is to keep me alive as long as I can, because I can't help anyone else around me if I don't help myself first.
Wow. I love that, Jeff. Thank you, man. I'll tell you what a heck of an interview we had here with you today. How do we find you? If somebody's listening to this, they want to get in touch with Jeff and just tell us a little bit about your nonprofit and how can we get a hold of you through your nonprofit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I run the livingundeterred.com website. I post a weekly blog. I have a weekly podcast, which again, you were so gracious to be a guest on. I wrote a book called This One's For You. But the big news is next summer, I'm doing the Living Undetoured US tour, and I'm going to every 50 states. I bought a 36-foot RV. I'm going to wrap it all in Living Undetoured. And we're going to go around the United States, and I'm going to stop at every state. I'm going to raise $1 million. And I'm giving half of it back to all the states that support me. And I have 15 states already on board. And the rest of it's going in my nonprofit to help kids with choices on alcohol and substance abuse. But I'm taking 3 to 4 months of my life next summer. And someone asked me the other day, Jeff, that's a big deal. And I said, yeah, it is. What's your budget? My budget is my last penny I have. That's my budget. I will spend every single penny I have because I have a feeling I won't have to. I have a feeling that when I announce this in 2 weeks on my live stream, which I want you to be a part of, by the people watch this, it'll already be announced. I'm going to have a groundswell of grassroots people that are saying, hey, I don't really want to do a podcast like Jeff. I don't have the courage like Daniel to have a podcast to talk about suicide, but I certainly can tell my story to Jeff and he can boom it out to the world. And so I want to be a beacon. I want to be a platform for people to share their stories on anything that involves mental health, substance abuse, and addiction. I want to change the narrative. I want to break down walls. And in doing so, I'm going to help myself. In doing so, I'm going to become a better man, a better person. And again, that's what fell into my lap. I mean, death presented an opportunity for me to become a better human. And I'm not going to waste that opportunity, Daniel.
I love that. Hold up your book one more time. We can get your book on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. And actually next week, I'm releasing the audio book that I recorded myself. It's my own voice.
Awesome.
So,
man. Well, thank you for joining us, Jeff. You've been an amazing guest. And ladies and gentlemen, you definitely want to connect with Jeff. And, he's an amazing gentleman. Like I said, he has a pure heart, and if his story touched you, reach out to him. He has a nonprofit, and like you said, Living Undeterred is his podcast, and get a copy of his book on Amazon. We'll definitely put all that in the show notes for you, Jeff. And well, that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, for this week's episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. If you felt touched, if you felt moved, thank you so much. Leave a comment on subscribe to our show here on iTunes, Spotify, and here on YouTube. And also, if you need help in your life or business, if you feel that you're stuck, or if you feel that your business isn't growing and scaling the way you want it to, so many times we're dealing with these issues that me and Jeff talked about today. We want to help you with our Shield of Faith coaching. Go to www.danielgomezglobal.com. Leave us a message. That's www.danielgomezglobal.com. We want to help you. We want you to reach out to us, whether it's life or business. We want award-winning executive and business coach here in San Antonio in 2019 and 2020. So we want to help you. And until next week, we'll see you here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. God bless y'all. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to danielgomezinspires.com and get your copy today. That's danielgomezinspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.